Okay, what's up, guys? So, episode two today of the Average Bros podcast. And, well,
That was
first of
so
all,
underwhelming. That was the intro.
yeah. Yeah. You want to
We
start? Do
just talked
it.
for like 5 minutes before this, who's going to do the
Yeah.
intro, and then Julien was really excited to do it. And
Okay, take two.
let me try.
Welcome.
Let me try next
Oh,
week.
go for it.
No, you go.
So, that's episode two for you guys. So we want to start by thanking every one of you that watched, listened to episode one. We're now on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts for that one person that told us he was listening through that. So thank you. And thank you to those who subscribed, like, commented. Obviously, as we go, we're going to get better at this. But we do appreciate you guys that listened. So, how was your week?
Week's good.
Week-
Like I'm 4 and a week. I'm a 4.5 weeks out now. So, I got a message from Cameron, my coach, and he was kind of like because the whole decision behind doing Toronto was originally I was going to do Atlanta 6 weeks later, and then it just started like the dieting was going good and that, and I said let's do Toronto, like it's right here. I have talked about this last podcast. I have like a drive to win around here,
Yep.
um, but like I'm at that point in prep where every hour to every hour, it's like I'm hyper confident, and then I don't even think I'm gonna, finish. I'll finish dead last in Toronto, and then the next hour, I'm like gonna win the Olympia, and then
Oh,
it's
okay.
just like I'm
Yeah.
all over the place right now.
Yeah.
And I think it was really just because he was more so like put in perspective. He's like, if your glutes are not shredded in 2 weeks, we gotta reconsider.
Okay.
And then that sort of was in my head a little bit. And I went back to him that night and said, like, I'm gonna make it happen. Like, I'm going to make this happen, like,
Okay.
no matter what. So it's just sort of like a flip that switch in my head that I flipped. And um, since that day, I guess that was only like 4 days ago. Every day it's just been like pure focus on prep, and everything seems to be going really good. We dropped calories down, food's lower, a little bit more activity, and like the scale's moving down. I'm definitely feeling it a little bit more, but everything like is just so encompassed around prep right now. It's like I have that tunnel vision of what did you do this week? It's like everything I needed to do to
Yeah.
prep. So you probably had a little bit more of an exciting week. I think
Oh,
when we left off, you were
yeah.
just going through a therapy session. So I wanted to
Yeah.
ask you
Yeah.
about I'm interested in that. I think actually it would serve most people really well to see someone to talk to, right?
Oh, for sure. Before touching on that, you're talking about like your ups and down, like during the day. Is that just in your head, or is it happening like when you're scrolling through Instagram and seeing like other guys doing the show and you comparing yourself? Because I know a lot of people like spend way too much time looking at other competitors and then getting in their head with that. Do you feel like that's
Yeah,
part of it or not really for you?
I definitely have fallen victim to that in the past, and I'm pretty realistic with like when you see someone on Instagram, you have no idea what they look like until they're on stage.
No.
I don't worry too much about Instagram. It's just the pressure comes from this prep specifically because of the amount of time I've taken off between shows.
Yeah.
And if I'll go on stage and not bring a better package than I did the last time, then it'll feel like a waste of like a year and a half of
Yeah.
really intense training and everything, right? So I think it's just like it feels like a really big deal. Before that, like I started competing in 2016, and every year I did like at
Show.
least one or two shows. Yeah.
Okay.
So this was the first year I've ever taken off, or 2023 was the first year I ever took off to try and make improvements and to grow. And I just want to make sure that like the next time I'm on stage or in Toronto when I'm on stage, it's like an actual noticeable difference.
Yeah. The-
And then that's where the pressure comes from.
But don't you feel like you can kind of already know if you've grown, like comparing pictures from like 5 weeks out now versus two
Yeah, but
years
you know what
ago?
it's like. So like for me, when I'm dieting down, like I am much heavier
Yeah.
at this stage than I was like 4.5 weeks out from the Savannah show.
Yeah.
The Olympia I don't count as much because I was like rebounding a little bit into
Yeah.
that. But for Savannah, when I got lighter, like I'm still 18 pounds heavier than I
That's a
was at
lot.
my lightest for Savannah. And then I get in my head about like, well, how much tissue would I have put on? Like I know it's obviously not 17 or 18
No.
pounds, but I've still got 4.5 weeks. And it's like just that kind of like balance, right? And that's where the
Yeah,
coach comes in. It's like you want to balance fullness, size,
for
condition, and you
sure.
got you got to get condition, but you don't want to necessarily kill yourself into that
No.
to take away from your look at all. And this has been a very different prep from previous ones for me. So I think this is when the mind games kick in for me.
Yeah.
I feel to your point about looking at people on social media, I always think that people look like super conditioned, like far out now. I don't know if you've noticed that, but I
Yeah.
think that like people are like shredded, like 8, 10 weeks out from
Yeah.
shows and stuff. And I'm like, damn, man, like I've always not maybe peaked on time. Like at 2 weeks out, I'm like, okay, now like I'm ready. I'm
Yeah.
never ready like 2 months out or anything like that.
No.
So yeah, it's just trying to get into that position to be like, okay, I've got today's 32 days
Yeah.
to make it happen, and what type of like pace do I need to set for myself in order to achieve that really good condition? Because obviously I want to be bigger, but if it's sacrificing being hard, then that
Yeah.
trade-off never works well, right? So
Yeah.
like I got to play to strengths, which is shape and condition. And then hopefully with the added size, it'll just be enough to like put it over the top. But um, yeah, it's just pressure from myself, I think, more than anything with it.
Yeah. For sure. And like obviously expectations you set for yourself, because
Hmm.
having qualified previously for the Olympia and then taking a full year off, obviously you expect to be able to win a show again this year, right?
You do, and like again, I I don't take any show for granted.
No.
I think at the pro level, like there's obviously the mindset of like the elite guys who like expect to win every show
Yeah.
they step into. Um, I've always said, like, from the first time I competed in 2016 at a regional show to when won the Savannah show, it was I wanted an opportunity to be in the top group.
Yeah.
And I think that this is a good mentality for people to have instead of thinking like, I'm going to the show to win, which is obviously what the majority of people are doing at this level. It's give yourself an opportunity to battle against the
Yeah.
top group because that's what it is all about. For me anyway, like I love that part of it is getting like in the lineup, they call your number, you get in the spot, and then it's like an action, then it feels like a sport, right?
Yeah.
It's
For
like
sure.
you're fighting against these other guys with poses and stuff, and there's a lot of energy around it. And I always just want that opportunity to be able to be in those positions.
Yeah.
So, and once you're there, then you start to get an idea, like, hey, if they move you into the center, like things are going good.
Yeah. For
But
sure.
until you get there, I don't hold the expectation too greatly of like, I would never flat out just say like I'm going to win.
No.
I think that that's not the best way to go about it, but I'm going to compete and I'm
Yeah.
going to be tough to beat. But I like that kind of idea behind it because at this level too, and like I don't know, I've looked at some of the competitors and stuff like it will be competitive.
Oh, for sure.
It always is competitive. There's never an easy show at this level. So it's just like when you're comparing yourself against elite people, there's going to be at least 3 to 5 of them, I would think, at almost all of these shows.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun to go up against those guys.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I can tell you that you've progressed a lot. Like obviously comparing your pictures from 2 years ago to now, like I feel like the last like 2, 3 weeks, you could end up looking worse, but still know that your off season has been successful. Like people over diet and stuff like that sometimes, right?
Hmm.
So I feel like to me personally, I feel like looking at how you look 1 month out versus last time you were 1 month out is pretty much the best marker in terms of how much tissue you actually put on. Because I feel like stage look can change so much based on so many different variables that don't necessarily represent the work you've put in during the off season, right?
I think another
Especially,
telling factor is the amount of food too, right?
yeah, for sure. You're eating way more than before, right?
Right, right.
Yeah. All right. So your weeks are pretty much the same, just upping the dose, upping the cardio, and reducing calories, right?
Yeah, yeah, up in the drugs, up in the cardio, up in the training. So
Nice.
it'll be interesting how like I think maybe my mood might change on here a little bit as it
Oh,
progresses.
maybe.
I'd be interested to see if people notice a difference.
Yeah.
I think what people don't see is that like, and I'm not that far into it yet where I'm dying or anything, but like I will have to like turn it on for the camera kind of thing and like,
Yeah.
feel pretty good
Keep
about
that
myself.
1 hour
Yeah.
energy spike.
But then
Yeah.
Sarah will probably watch this, my wife, and be like, well, why are you so happy on there? Like you're so miserable other times, right? But it's just an
Yeah.
up and down thing,
Oh,
and
for
everybody
sure.
struggles with it for sure. But yeah, no, you got to tell me about your week because
Yeah.
I like the escape of like hearing other things
Yeah,
outside of
for sure.
bodybuilding right now because I'm so invested in it.
Oh, for sure. And like you're obviously in an environment being that you train at Pure where everyone is like in prep mode all the time. So it's probably harder to escape. Even when you're
100%.
having like gym talks, it's probably just prep talk all the time, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
no, it is. There's
everyone
multiple
is
people
like super
prepping.
zoned in. Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, we went to therapy. So last week when we talked, I was actually going the next day, right?
Yeah.
So we got there and see, we're not going to fix a major problem or anything. It would be pretty weird actually having like big problems for months into a relationship.
Hmm.
But it was more just so like, yo, we're going each on our own and we're talking a lot about a relationship while we're there, right? So it's not just like internal issues that I need and want to fix. It's more just like I'm trying to bettering myself. Like I don't feel like I have traumas that I need to heal from or anything. It's really just like I think I'm pretty good as a boyfriend and as a
But
human in
hang
gym.
on. Are you guys doing this together or
We're
are you
doing
separate?
both. We're doing
Okay.
both. So
Okay.
basically she was going first and she was telling me our sessions were, and I was like, yo, that looks pretty fun. Like
Hmm.
ask her if we could go together. And to be able to go together, she wanted to meet me alone first so that she wasn't like biased toward the picture Mary Lou drew from a relationship, right?
That's fair.
Yeah. So that's fair. And it's good for pockets also, obviously. So I went without really knowing what to expect, right? And I just felt like there were some small things that I was like, well, I could actually work on that and just be like a better person, a better boyfriend, mostly. So it went from there, and then I went twice alone, and then we went together. So,
But be more specific when you say a better, like what are you working on? Like what is it?
well, mostly like, and for example, when I have like an idea of how something should be or how someone should conduct themselves in a relationship, I feel like
Expectations.
yeah, well, yes and no, but somewhat. I feel like my view is like the best view. And if
Oh, I
someone
see. I
doesn't
see.
see it the same way,
Hmm.
then I'm like, it should be different, right? Like that's my
Right.
first,
It's your way or the
yeah,
highway kind
like
of
my
thing.
my way is the best way to view things, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it's really just about understanding that like people can have a different view or opinion without like having bad intentions or anything like that. And that it's also okay for someone to view things differently or act differently. So instead of just being like, well, I wouldn't do that, so I don't want the other person to do it either, to just
Hmm.
be able to kind of step out of that a bit and just be more understanding and then be able to more like express myself about how that makes me feel instead of being like, you did that, this is wrong, right?
Yeah, and it's I guess the first thing is like noticing yourself doing it,
For
right?
sure, for
You're like,
sure.
shit, I'm doing it again.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously like it's over time, but I'm very self-aware, I would say. The other thing is when something doesn't um when I don't like something, I'm gonna be able the kind of person to just say it right away. Like I don't like to keep things or push things aside. It's like I'm not feeling good now. I want to express it now,
Hmm.
which is good, but the way I'm expressing it isn't necessarily always the best. Because like when it's like just fresh, you express it in a more like emotional kind of way,
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
that can lead to the other person being more defensive because you've been more like on the attack instead of talking about how you're feeling, right? So
Yeah, no,
it,
I know what you mean with that. Like, it's like if I've done something that like upsets somebody,
yeah,
I can't let that person like go away
yeah,
without like making them like either feel better or like understand where I'm coming from. Otherwise, that'll haunt me,
yeah,
you
for
know,
sure.
for
Yeah,
like until I deal with it. I'm the same way with that.
yeah. But you see, you're talking about it more on the opposite kind of on the opposite side, right? You're talking
Well, you're the
about it
one
on
that's hurt. Okay,
no,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
the
go.
one that's pissed,
Right, right,
right?
right. Okay.
Because I'm someone that has like very high expectations and I
Hmm.
don't really let go anything. Like if something I feel is not right, it's like this needs to be fixed, right?
Probably a good thing as a coach.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's a good thing. It's also a good thing in the sense that like my boundaries are very like determined and like I'm strict about those. It's more
Hmm.
so about how I make someone understand what those boundaries are. So
Hmm.
let's say you're doing something that I feel is not right. Instead of telling you the fact, like what you did, and then switching to how that made me feel, I would
Hmm.
be more kind of blaming you for not acting correctly. But then what that does is that closes you to a discussion. Like you're going to feel like you're being attacked. So some people, not everyone, but for example, Mary Lou, if she feels attacked, then she closes herself. And then there's
Hmm.
no discussion or anything positive that can come from that, right? So it's really more just about me being able to express myself. We actually talked about that, like with the terms, it's like non-aggressive communication. And most
You go to
humans,
0 to 100, eh?
well, yes and no, like not
Yeah.
200 if it's with my partner, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's really more like humans communicate in an aggressive way, in a way that it's like you did that, this is wrong, instead of
Hmm.
like those are the facts, this is how I feel, this is how I would like you to act the next time. So it's really
Hmm.
more just about toning it down, calming myself a bit, and processing my emotions and really understanding how I'm feeling, instead of like, when you know you don't feel good, but you
Hmm.
don't really know the emotion. It's about also like being able to say, okay, well, I'm not feeling good because I'm sad or because I'm angry or because I feel left out. Or so it's really more being able to correctly recognize how I'm feeling and then express that on a on an I kind of way instead of a you did that.
Right, right.
So we went together, but see, this is something we already had worked a bit on, like on our both of our sides.
Hmm.
But I feel like going to therapy before you have a problem is actually very preventive. And it's also like it puts a fun energy in the relationship after. Because if there's like a small conflict that could arise, like we've
Hmm.
been able to actually notice it before and then go like, okay, we got the tools. She gave us the same tools at the same time. And
Yeah.
we can use those tools and it actually turns into something fun. Because I
Well, it's kind
actually,
of like this type of open conversation, right? Because
yeah,
like for me and Sarah, like we don't have much opportunity or we just don't make the time to like
yeah,
sit down and actually communicate with each other.
yeah,
So like by the end of the day, like, I'm watching a show and she's watching her thing or whatever, and we don't really have that like time to set
yeah.
aside to do it. And that's why I really like the idea of you guys going together to do something like that, not to work on a problem, but just to maybe discover like, new ways of like, being together and being happy, right? Like,
100%. And we actually saw it more as a date than anything,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because
exactly.
it's actually like super engaging. And the fact that there's a third person involved, you actually sometimes feel better about saying something because you're not worried that the way you're going to say it might offend the other person because you know that someone is in the middle ground to interpret it. And for
Yeah,
me, I also really like having someone neutral because that person can kind of bring me back. Because
yeah.
sometimes, like, I like being told that I'm wrong. Obviously, if it's by my partner and the situation is between me and my partner, I won't really be able to fully trust that opinion. But
It's
let's
just
say,
one. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, but let's say like you and I were fighting, and then you were you had your point of view, I would have mine, and then you would ask Sarah, like, what do you think of that? And she
Hmm.
would kind of be like, well, I think Julien is right on blah blah blah. You would take it, you would trust that judgment more than mine, right?
Right.
So I feel
Yeah.
like if there's a third person involved, I actually like being able to be told I'm wrong.
Hmm.
So
It's funny though, like Sarah and I have been together for 11 years.
yeah,
So we're like the same person now
yeah, it's
in a
obviously a
lot in a
different
lot of
dynamic.
ways.
Yeah,
So let's say I have an argument with you
yeah,
and then I talk to her about it.
she would
She's
probably have the same point of
99% going to
view.
take my point of view
Yeah,
and unless we've got some sort of issue going on right at that
yeah,
moment, right? And then she's absolutely not
yeah,
going to. But
yeah.
um that's that and that's a thing where like I think it would be good with therapy and stuff is to like have like individuality
Oh, for
where like
sure.
a lot of times in relationships like you just like kind of lose that, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like it's something that most people would, well, actually, everyone would benefit from.
Hmm.
For some reason, I feel like a lot of people are really close to that or in avoidance. And
Well, it
obviously,
comes with a
go,
negative dogma to it of
yeah,
like you have a problem if you're going to
yeah,
therapy. But it's funny because therapy is kind of like training for your physique too, right? Like
oh, for
when you go
sure.
to the gym, you're working on your body. When you go to therapy, like you get, brain stimulation.
Yeah.
It's just another way of like kind of bettering yourself through that. I'm just like what does it cost? Like what would it cost to go see a therapist where you are? Like what's like an hourly rate?
I mean, it's $100 for an hour.
$100?
Yeah, but then I mean, I can put that down on my insurances and I end up paying
Yeah.
$20.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm just
S-
curious.
So it's really not that much, especially if you have insurance. But even if you don't, like we went for 90 minutes together, right? So 90
Hmm.
minutes was 150.
Right.
Well, that's the price of a cheap dinner date, where
Hmm.
like a dinner date where you don't drink.
Hmm.
Well, I actually enjoyed that an hour and a half more than a dinner date. I feel like it did more for a relationship than a dinner
Would you
date.
be more
So
inclined to go like obviously it's a different thinking, but like on your own or with her? Like,
I would do both. And I'm actually going
yeah.
again tomorrow, Friday alone. And I feel like because I don't have like many like or really any like past traumas from like past relationship or anything like that, I feel like I don't need to go alone as much. But I
Hmm.
feel like there's a lot of people that don't necessarily realize some of the stuff they reproduce in their new relationship is because of past relationships, right?
Or
So,
even outside of
oh,
relationships,
for
like,
sure.
your life is like, been around for over 30 years. Like
Yeah.
some stuff's gonna stick with you from childhood that you may not realize for
Yeah,
sure.
exactly. So I feel like even just talking to someone can make you realize things about yourself that you never really knew.
Hmm.
That's a nice shaker, by the way.
This is this is the best greens on the market right here. This is where I got my greens from.
There you go.
That's hilarious. Shout out to Believe. We're
Yeah.
doing $50 or two $50, three $50. I don't know what is it, Julian.
Yeah, it's
Giveaway for
three gift cards later on to the Q&A's questions we're going to pick. So you can choose between Belief cards or Elevate.
yeah, you got to
Um,
listen all through
yeah.
Julian's childhood trauma to get to these questions to
Yeah.
find out if
Yeah,
you
we're
had been
doing the
selected.
therapy session special.
You know what
So
I was gonna do? I was gonna do
yeah.
product placement back here behind me of like Elevate stuff, but it's
Yeah.
just today's been so crazy I didn't get a chance to. But I wonder, like obviously we're gonna have the numbers on this, but how many people watch it versus actually just listening to it? Um, like
When
I
you
never really watch a podcast. I
Oh, you
always
mean
just
on
listen to it.
YouTube?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But even if it's on YouTube, like, are you actually watching it, or are you just, have it on in the background?
it really depends. Like sometimes I'm gonna watch it on my TV, but while I'm at the table eating at the same times.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And what do you
uh,
listen to? Like, what would it be?
bodybuilding podcast or
Like, what?
FUADs, yeah,
Yeah.
or stock market stuff. Like
Okay.
Meet Kevin, you know that
Okay. Never
guy?
heard of it.
Little
No.
nerd guy, but it's really like more entertaining and interactive. But
Yeah.
I don't watch that many podcasts, to be honest with you.
Right.
Um, so yeah, therapy session, I feel like if you're in a relationship, it's something that if obviously if you have money for it, I feel like it's something that can benefit everyone. And see, we felt like this like 30 question little sheet both on our sides, and it was like on a scale of 1 to 5, how satisfied are you about each aspect of the relationship? And then we both did it on our like separately, and then we compared our answers. So
Don't you find those
obvious,
so difficult to do without considering what the other person's thinking?
well, I just
Like,
I feel like if you think too much, yes.
yeah,
So I feel like
yeah.
you just need to go by what your first instinct is.
Hmm.
Like if you like right away, if I'm thinking 4, I'm gonna circle that right away, not even think about why I'm thinking 4.
Okay.
Um, so I feel like that's also like a good way to engage conversation and be able to see if you're clicking or if some stuff needs to be worked on, but in a
Hmm.
way that I feel like most people are not um, okay with the idea of expressing insatisfaction in their relationship, and they just let it slide and let it slide and let it slide and complain to their friends, but don't do
Right.
anything about it.
Hmm.
Well, I feel like that's a really good and solid way to see what could be potential problems that could arise later on in the future, and then you can work on that right away.
Yeah, I guess I mean you're just really trying to find out if you're compatible for each
Yeah.
other on the early stages. And then later on in the relationship, it's like, there's still things that you can learn about your partner that maybe they don't even know.
Oh, for sure. Well, let's say like there was one question. It was like, are you satisfied with the relationship you guys your partner have with your friends? Well, I
Hmm.
mean, even if you're 11 years in a relationship, maybe Sarah is like at a 4 instead of a 5, and she never told you because a 4 is still good, but it could be better. And then it can
Hmm.
just bring out the conversation of, okay, well, you wrote 4. Why is that? And then you can just have like small little things that if you want to, you can work on afterward.
Hmm.
So I feel
I
it's
want
not
that's
about,
Yeah. I want to ask you a question too
yeah,
about like Mary Lou. She
yeah.
isn't into the fitness space as well in terms like she just likes to work out.
She likes to work out. She doesn't do competitions or anything like that, but she actually likes watching shows,
Hmm.
which she never really did before, but like she's actually interested, and she at some point considered like doing a coaching formation, like just because she likes it. So
Hmm.
she's she's what I would say like a lifestyle fitness kind of girl,
Mm. Okay.
like the kind of athletes that like Gymshark would have, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then her friends then, are they fitness people too, or are they more
No,
just like,
no, they're not.
okay. Because
She's
I find that
probably,
yeah, that's interesting, right? Because Sarah's sort of the same way, and I am too. Like my friends are like friends I've had for a long time since high
yeah,
school, and not one of them, well, I shouldn't say not one of them, but no one's serious about training.
yeah,
So when I go out with them, there's a group of 8 of us, and it's all of their girlfriends, and then Sarah comes, obviously. It's like a way different dynamic than if I go out with like friends from the gym or if I see
yeah.
friends from the gym and like what those conversations are like. And I find that it's a good balance. but then at
100%.
the same time, like you do feel very different uh,
Yeah.
in those senses as well. And it's like, you start thinking like, they're doing all these different things, and like the
The,
focus is bodybuilding right now for me, but it's just
yeah.
there's a lot more going on outside of
The,
that.
does it make you envy them sometime? Because their life is like more like I can do what I want when I
You
want.
know what I catch myself being like envious of is
What?
people traveling.
Yeah.
Like like the girls that like just go on a million trips. I know it's
Yeah.
like there's a lot more behind the scenes that go into some of those things, but just being able to like be in these beautiful places, and like I've always wanted to, see more.
Yeah.
That's one that I definitely get envious of, because I think when you're in the bodybuilding scene, you're so compartmentalized, and like in this just bunker basically of time,
Yeah.
especially in prep, because
Oh,
like
for sure.
every hour is accounted for. Like, there's really not much I can fit in right now outside of like my daily tasks and what I need to do for prep. So when you see, I think that lifestyle alternative to that is traveling, because it's so different from bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And that's what intrigues me. But it's just something that I'm like, that would be fun, but I would obviously not be happy if I wasn't working on my fitness goals at the same
Yeah.
time. And I just know it's not possible.
No, for sure.
And that kind of goes with like, people are always like, oh, like, aren't you upset that you can't have this food that we're having tonight? Or like, are you not disappointed you can't have a beer watching like the hockey game and stuff like that? And it's
Yeah.
like, yes, but also it's so against the goals that I'm trying to achieve that it just wouldn't even creep into my mind of being a possibility at this point.
Yeah.
Um, and it's really like, I think if I wasn't bodybuilding, then I wouldn't care. I would have beers and stuff at watching a hockey game. I would eat like, good meals, if I went over to a friend's house without even thinking about it. And stuff like that, I do look forward to after the fact. But then it's kind of going to be cool, I think, to look back and be like, the discipline was so strong that I can enjoy these things now. And, hopefully I have a lot of time to travel and to do whatever I want that's not like this. But for now, I think because of how like involved bodybuilding is, and, at this level too, it's something that's unique and like special that does have a finite amount of time. And I've even considered like, I'll segue back to you, but like, do you like, I'm not talking like strictly competitive bodybuilding, but like eating like a bodybuilder, training like a bodybuilder, just living that lifestyle. Do you think you're going to do that, quote unquote, forever? Or like, do you have a time in your mind where you're like, if I'm 50, there's no way I'm doing this,
I,
Like, do you have that time?
I think I will, but I think I will at like almost what I'm doing now, I would say, which is probably like a 70-80% kind of thing. Like right now, if I feel like eating
But your
something,
70-80% is some like a lot of people's 100, right? Like
well,
you
yeah, but
live a real
if
strict bodybuilding lifestyle.
yes and no, yes and no, in the sense that like if I feel like having a drink, I'm gonna have it. If I feel like having a cheat meal, I'm gonna have it. Now, given that I'm not gaining body fat easily and I'm trying to put on weight, it's not a problem for me because obviously it goes with my body type, right? I can have two cheat meals tonight and I'm not going to be any worse tomorrow. Um,
Mm.
what I and to go back to you, like with the traveling, like I do travel a bit more than you, I think. And when I do travel,
It's for bodybuilding, right? Like
not
it's for
all,
shows.
well, not
No?
always. Like
Okay.
I went to Mexico and Dominican Republic twice this year already. And when I'm
Okay.
away, like I try to just eat enough, but then I'm like, I'm gonna drink every day. And like I'm just obviously I'm not competing. If I was competing this year, things would be very different. But I've been out of this away from the stage for 3 years.
Hmm.
Now to go back to what I envy like from normal people is how spontaneous they can be with their life. Like let's say you're going to a friend's, right? And you brought one meal because you know that you're having that meal and you're going to be good, but then they decide, oh, let's go out. Well, they can go out and not care about their sleep schedule, their
Hmm.
next meal. They can just say, we're going to drink and we're going to go grab McDonald's afterward. So they can do that. I feel like that's something that we can't. Like it's always like be ready, plan ahead, blah blah blah. But you're not gonna bring like 5 meals in case you stay there and sleep there and come back the next day.
So
So
you're more you're not jealous, but envious of their like their no care mentality.
yeah, 100%,
Yeah.
100%. Because it's more like I can do what I want when I want. Whereas I feel
Hmm.
like for bodybuilders, it's like I can do what I want if I planned it in advance,
Yeah.
right?
It's funny, like that all also relates to like I feel like I put this onto other people where I hate the feeling of being at a social event, eating a certain way, and people thinking that they're maybe doing something wrong or
Yeah.
like they should be doing this.
Do you
Like
feel like this happens a lot?
sometimes, and I think that's maybe me thinking about it, and it may not be true, but I think that when, uh, yeah, I don't know, I'm out and I'm trying to eat clean or do something like that, and somebody maybe wants to have a pizza or whatever,
Yeah.
they might think like, or maybe feel bad about it.
Okay. I feel like you're more like caring about how other people feel than I am, though. So that's why I probably don't feel that way because I wouldn't give a shit. like, like I
Yeah,
wouldn't give a shit either way. Like if I'm with 5 people that are competing the next week and I feel like having pizzas in front of them, I'm gonna do it and I won't feel bad one bit. And
that's a bit different though, I think.
well, see, the other way around, I would be the same. Like if I'm around people that are trying to lose weight and are eating at the restaurant and I have my meals, I don't give a shit either.
Hmm.
Like I feel like it's just their own perception. And at that point, it's not to me to work on how they feel through their own perceptions. It's something they need to work on.
I've always had a comparison between like when you see someone like us eating a certain way and living a certain lifestyle, people are quick to like compare themselves to you in a weird way. Like they'll
Yeah.
be like, oh, like I do, a little bit of this and a little bit of that
Yeah.
and stuff. But let's say I showed up to the hockey rink and like Austin Matthews or like any of the top players in the league are shooting around like crazy. I would never go up to them and be like, oh, like I skate recreationally on a
Yeah.
Wednesday. You know what I mean? Like, I think people want like to like compare because everyone has a physique.
Yeah.
Not everyone is skilled at a sport,
No.
but everyone thinks that like, they play that comparison game.
Yeah.
And that becomes like kind of strange in a way.
Well, the way I would say it, in probably a less politically correct way than you are, is that
Mhm.
they're trying to justify their shortcomings. Like, like I feel like it's like, well, I'm not like that because XYZ, and I'm not eating like that because XYZ. Like it, because I feel
There's a
like,
lot of examples though, right? There could be like a
oh,
super rich family in a neighborhood, like in the slums.
yeah,
And like if you're in this massive mansion, it would still feel weird living beside people in shacks.
oh, for sure.
Like so
Yeah.
that's maybe a better example for you to understand. Like
Well, I
I
still
think
wouldn't
that
feel bad.
not feel
I would still be like, well, I made it. Like you can too. So just fucking work harder.
yeah, okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Like I don't feel like I've been given anything, right? Like
Hmm.
I haven't been handed physique or wealth or whatever.
Hmm.
So obviously, if that was the case, I might feel different. I
Hmm.
feel like a lot of people in, especially in today's society, justify their, I wouldn't say mediocrity, but them not doing so good in life with like reasons of why they're not taking actions. And I'm
It's
like,
insecurities for
oh,
sure.
for sure, 100%.
Yeah.
And like when you see a physique, like you can't hide it, right? Like it's in your face. Like you don't see everyone's bank account, so it's not the
Hmm.
same in
True.
that way. But a
True.
physique just jumps right at your face, just the same as if you show up to a fucking Honda Civic party in a Lambo. Like people are gonna see it right away and then start telling you why they're having a Civic instead of a Lambo.
Hmm.
So I feel
Hmm.
like it's kind of similar in that way, but I don't feel bad for
Bad about it. Yeah.
I don't feel bad
Yeah.
about doing good for myself.
Yeah. No, no, that's fair.
Just
I
as
I don't feel bad. It's just sometimes maybe awkward, but yeah.
I don't I'm
But you
more
don't
in
care.
the
You
no
don't care. That's
I
fine. That's good.
really
You got to
can't
be
come
honest.
to the terms of caring about that in any if anything I'm proud.
Yeah. No,
Like
and that's probably a better way to think about it than you give less of a
yeah,
shit about
don't feel
any of
bad
that.
don't feel bad about doing good in life.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's because you care more about how that's going to make other people feel. And you don't want to
Right.
make other
Right.
people feel not great, right?
Right. Right.
Whereas I don't care.
Hmm. Like there was times like my parents, like when I was growing up, we there was like a transition of like my dad owned a business. Oh, did I just lose my camera?
Oh, your camera
Hold
just
on.
went out.
I'll have to go back on this one.
So as Blake is fixing his
Uh,
phone,
I'm back.
oh,
I'm back on the
we're back
Hyper
on the
HD.
poverty webcam.
Yeah, I'm having some
See,
technical difficulties
I
with my
won't feel
webcam.
bad about having a quality webcam next to you now.
Yeah, now I'm like impoverished over here
You're the
with
one in
like
the slum.
unbelievable. Look how that worked out. It should be you that has the bad camera.
Yeah.
I think what I was saying though is that like when I was growing up, like there was a transition of like my parents kind of being an I would say average like household income.
Yeah.
My dad had a business and like at the time he was putting everything into his business and like we
Yeah.
didn't have like tons of extra cash for anything. And then probably when I was like 12 to 13, kind of just starting high school, I guess maybe 14, the business started doing really well. So I went from, being sort of average middle class to I would say upper class, like
Yeah.
wealthy.
Well,
And that transition made me like I hated when people would say like, "Oh, like he's rich or his family's rich," because I felt like that was like something negative. Like, and
yeah.
I know it's not a negative thing, but my whole mindset was like, growing up, I didn't always have everything, and like we went through like this transition period. Now I have wealth, but it's like I would never want people to know that going
Yeah.
into a situation. I would always want to be like, you and I are on equal playing fields. Like, there's no difference between you and I. And whenever someone would call it out or speak to it, I'd be
Yeah.
uncomfortable about it because it was something
Yeah.
that was different at the time. And even that's like, yeah, from that transition, I guess maybe the same with my physique.
Yeah.
I went from a time where I didn't, nobody was talking about my physique or anything like that to, developing a competitive physique. It's like that transition period. I always kind of like look back to like I started like maybe in the same spot or I had the same things as you, and now
Yeah.
it's something different, but it's still, I don't know why I struggle with feeling that it's not uncomfortable, but just like I guess it's just different, and anything
Oh,
that's
for sure.
different for somebody is maybe harder to relate to,
Yeah.
you know?
100% for sure. But
Yeah.
see, like in both cases, it just shows you that like if through consistency and hard work, like you can achieve great things, right? So
Hmm.
instead of thinking about like the end result and it being awkward, like you would never be ashamed or not feel great about like the work you've needed to put in to get there.
Right.
So I feel like when you're uncomfortable with the end result.
Hmm.
It's true, maybe forgetting all it took to get there.
Yeah. And like maybe instead, like wanting to educate and to show people how like those transitions are done,
Yeah, because
you know?
and see, that's the thing. I feel like a lot of people on Instagram, I feel, think that like you and Sarah just inherited money or got rich out of nowhere or
Hmm.
whatever, because you guys don't speak about it much, right?
Hmm.
But I feel like there would be some people that would hate on you guys for no reason and would always do.
Well, that would
But
be what it was always, right? Like I would get
yeah,
so many like Q&A questions about like, I don't know, it's so strange. Like it's always about money and where money came from
yeah.
and those
But
types of
but
questions.
don't you feel that it's because you don't speak about it though? Because I feel like if you did speak about it more and showed like,
Hmm.
look, I'm successful, and you actually then explained where it's coming from, there would be
Yeah.
some people that would benefit from that.
Oh,
And
for sure.
and even if it's like, let's say you got 65 people, 65% of the people talking shit, but then
Hmm.
you get another 35% to actually start working harder and start
Hmm.
doing something more with their life. Well, then it's still worth it to kind of open up more about it. So
Yeah.
I mostly see it that way. Like, too bad for those that aren't happy about it, but for those that are going to listen, I feel like you need to show that you're successful before telling people how to go about things, right? Like, there's so many like mentoring programs and all that kind of stuff where it's people telling other people how to get rich, but they've
Hmm.
never done anything themselves.
Yeah. And you know what's funny? Like I keep saying, what's funny, and I'm catching myself doing it because Sarah put it on the comment of the last video. I'm at least at 4 right now. That's
Yeah.
that's minimum 4. Um, but what was I saying? It was remind me that I'm going
I
through
was
prep right
talking
now.
about people mentoring and just telling other people how to go about their thing
Oh yeah,
without.
okay, okay. Thank you. I got it now. So when you look on Instagram, okay, for example, there's a lot of people, and if you relate it back to bodybuilding, that people see and they're just jacked, right?
Yeah.
But they don't show anything of them not being jacked or
No.
also like their like previous life, I guess, like
Yeah.
before they started bodybuilding. And I think that people think that just like sort of came to them.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing as like the money thing or the success thing. It's like it's sometimes it can be hard to document it in a tasteful way.
Oh, for sure.
Like a lot of the
Yeah.
times when I see people talk about money online, it's like in the most distasteful way.
Yeah.
And it's
I
just
agree.
like you just look like such a douchebag, like
Yeah.
driving around in your Lambo, like in videos,
Yeah.
just getting out of it, like talking to girls and stuff. I hate that stuff. Like I
Yeah.
just think that's so lame. So I don't want to come across as that, right?
No.
Um, but I think it's interesting. And again, like someone came up to me at the gym and they actually said they would be interested in having like again, I don't know if it's going to happen today because we always just go on these tangents and
Yeah.
we struggle to get through what we actually want to go through, but a little bit more background on you and I and
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
sort of some of the things that led us to where
Yeah.
we are with our career and with,
Well, we're
everything that
we're gonna do
we're
a
working on.
podcast. Yeah, we're gonna do a podcast where I'm interviewing you, and then we can do the other way around.
Oh, we are going to do this.
Yeah, that's what you're
This
gonna
is
be
on
the
this is on
guest.
your
Oh,
your
for
journal over
sure.
there.
For
Okay.
sure. So you're gonna learn everything about Blake
Okay.
and
That's a good
about
idea.
myself. Yeah, that would be good. Um,
Should we do the Q&As, you think?
well,
Because I think it's
I
going to
feel,
take us a while to get through those
yeah, I
too.
feel like we should take just like 2 quick minutes to talk about the Pittsburgh Pro, which is this weekend.
Hmm.
How
You
do
want to
you
do that? You want to do a show preview?
No, it's not really a show, right? It's more about the guest posing.
Because you don't think classic physique's a category, eh?
No, exactly. No, because
It's
we
just
don't
for
we don't
Julien,
have
he's all
no.
open bodybuilding.
Yeah, all
Like
open. No, because there's just one thing I want to talk about, and I'm
Sure.
actually super interested in seeing is Nick is guest posing, right? And
Yeah.
so is Martin, and they're both doing the New York Pro the week after.
I'm surprised by all of the guest posers that are in that show.
Yeah, well, I
How
am,
much
but I
money are they
also
paying out for this? Like,
the guys don't really have a choice, man.
is it because it's affiliated with the IFBB and they're just sort of like,
Yeah,
we
it's
want you
like the
there?
big show where, like, if you don't show up, you
Mm.
remember the year Remy didn't show up?
Right, right. Okay. I do remember. Yeah, that was Pittsburgh too, eh?
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
that's the one big show, and that's like the show that put Derek more like on the map last year
Hmm.
also.
Don't
Uh
you find it's a lot to ask Nick to go and Martin to go and
yeah,
do that guest posing a week out?
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
it
I
is.
don't think they're going to peak. I don't think it's going to be like for Nick, I don't think it matters much, to be honest with you. Like Nick is a top 3, 4 Olympian.
Hmm.
I personally think he would have potentially won last year. Uh, so I don't think it really matters for him in the sense that he won't really need to do anything. For Martin, I'm just curious to see how he's going to compare to Nick because I feel like that's going to be a big indicative of how well he's going to do in New York the following week.
Yes and no.
Meaning,
Well, if Nick looks way better, okay,
yeah, yeah,
like if he looks way better, I don't think it's going to indicate really much of anything
okay,
outside of maybe Nick
being
running
just too
away with
good.
it.
Okay,
Yeah, but that would be the only difference. To your point, if it's close,
yeah,
it makes it very exciting for all like I mean Quentin, Tonio, Nick, and Martin. Like that is going to
yeah.
be like I was talking to Quentin today. I'm so excited to watch that
Oh,
the New
that's going
York
to be a
Pro.
big
Like
show. Like
it's
that's
going
going
to
to
be
be the
incredible.
best amateur show of the year.
Yeah, there's so many like storylines in it, and
Best,
then there's so many
best.
different ways it can play out.
Yeah, I said best amateur show, best Olympia qualifier of the year.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. And by the way, next week we're gonna talk about the New York Pro a bit before the actual show.
Yeah, okay.
Uh, for you guys, I know we've had a bit of like a few questions about show placings in the Q&As and all that kind of stuff. So we don't want to spend too much time about making predictions and all that kind of stuff. But we're gonna touch on it.
Yeah,
So,
we'll just work it into the
oh, for
pod.
sure.
Like we don't need to
Yeah.
make a full episode on it.
No, for sure. So want to go ahead with the Q&As?
Yeah. Okay. So we went through a huge list of questions between Julian and I that we've kind of been pulling up for the last handful of days here, and we've whittled it down to three really fun questions that you guys asked. So thank you to everyone who put in a question, and it was actually a really hard decision to whittle it down to the three. We were just going over it for about half an hour before we jumped on here. Um, but yeah, let's get into it. So the three questions, the first question that I'm going to read, the person who asked it, I'm also going to state their name, and then you or that person is going to be eligible to select either a $50 gift card from Believe Supplements or a $50 gift card from Elevate Foods. So you guys have a choice for the three winners. So the first question is when is the best time to compete for the first time? And that was from Sebastian.
Okay. So for me personally, I think it really depends on what your goal is, first of all, with your first show, in the sense that I feel like first show, your main goal should always be to see if you like prepping for a show, if you like being on stage. You really won't know before doing it, right? So there's part of it which should really only be, well, it's to see if I like it. If your goal for your first show is I want to turn pro, well, you're skipping a few steps, and that should really not be your main focus for first show. Now, why I'm saying it depends on your goal is because if your goal is just to step on stage, just be able to say, I did it once, you shouldn't wait or not wait the same amount of time as if your goal is, I want to have a chance to win my first show. Now,
I don't even like the step on stage thing.
you don't?
I'm going to be more harsh about this
Well,
answer
that's good. I feel like for
because
me,
today's different with competing
yeah, see for
than
me,
it used to be.
I feel like a regional show, if you want to step on stage and close your transformation with an accomplishment or whatever, I don't have a problem with it, as long as your expectations are in line with that you're still giving yourself 100%. And see, that's the thing. If someone was telling,
Why not do a photo shoot?
I mean, some people really don't know what to expect, right? Like, to me, stepping on stage doesn't mean they don't want to win. It's just that it's not what's most important to them. And I can accept it. See, I wouldn't see it that way, but I can accept that not everyone is dead set on focusing on winning a show the first time around. Now, what I would do as a coach with someone that tells me this is I would still let that person know that if they're not doing good, the
Hmm.
experience might not be really nice. And
Hmm.
obviously, if someone wouldn't look good, I would probably kind of try and steer them in another direction. Maybe, okay, let's prep. Let's do a
Hmm.
full prep, but then maybe we're going to do a photo shoot at the end instead of doing the show. Maybe we're going to go in another direction. Thing is, and I'm thinking more for, let's say, for bodybuilding.
Hmm.
Well, it's so easy to just postpone it and wait another year because you're not big enough, because you're not big enough, because you're not big enough. And you're never going to be big enough
Right.
to do your first show, which is why I'm thinking like, okay, if your goal is not to win your first show and you would just want to see how you do, but still in a competitive way. Like nobody goes there and be like, well, I'm going to be good with finishing last. Like if I ask someone if they would be last, if they would be as happy as first, and they would tell me yes, I would just tell them to not do a show.
Hmm.
It's really more like, if your goal is really to win your first show, then you should probably wait a bit more than if you don't. It, I feel like for some people, their experience won't will still be positive if they finish third, whereas for some, if they don't win, they're gonna quit bodybuilding altogether.
Hmm.
So that's where I stand. But I feel like you might as well get the first show done quicker, show up conditioned, and that's the big thing for me. I'm all for someone doing a show and showing up too small, but conditioned, but I'm really against showing up on stage fat.
Yeah, me too.
So if you can get in shape, but you're just too small, I'm good with that. If you're not in
But there's a
shape,
cat there's a catch to that one too
yeah,
for me. Like when I started, it was 2016, and obviously if I look back at that physique to where I am now, I would think like, holy crap, like I didn't look very good at all, right?
yeah,
But now, like I see guys who compete that just got a gym membership.
yeah,
And that I wouldn't say bothers me, but it's like if you don't have any muscle, don't do a competitive bodybuilding show.
no,
Like there should be some sort of thing in your head that tells you I need to make certain improvements to get to that point. And I'm not talking about everybody that needs to do a show that wants to do a show needs a mindset that thinks they're gonna win. Because even when I did a show, I thought like I had no idea. The first
yeah,
time I competed, I just had old guys at the gym telling me I look good.
okay,
That was all I
yeah,
had. And then when I got there, I had pretty good success early on, but it was one of those ones where I I still had put in a lot of years of foundation to
yeah,
get to this stage. It wasn't something that I just got a gym membership. I learned how to do a bicep curl and then I got a tan and went on stage.
yeah.
I think there is some sort of period of time, and I don't know exactly what that is, but
Yeah, I
I,
was
I
gonna
think
ask. Yeah. How long do you
Yeah.
think someone should
Well,
be?
it's different for different people, right? Because there's
Yeah.
some people you see on the street that they don't even work out and they look like they could be a competitive
Yeah.
bodybuilder. And then there's guys that train for a decade and they don't look like they've ever worked out, right? So
Yeah.
there's a huge genetic component to it. But I think that if you're serious and you're going to compete,
Yeah.
at least put in like some work into the back end of, I think number one, um I don't want to say you should have a coach, but I think you should have at least a mentor or somebody to tell you where they think you are in that sort of like competitive realm.
Yeah.
Because if you go in completely blind, you might have different expectations and be somewhat disappointed of the results that you get. And I don't know why today you see a lot more people stepping on stage that, to your point, they are conditioned, but they're doing maybe a classic or an open show, and they have like, and I'm not talking natural shows, I'm talking open
Yeah.
shows, like no muscle.
Yeah.
And I'm in my mind, I'm just thinking like this is a competitive bodybuilding show. You should have muscle. But to your point, you can't wait forever either. Because I do remember myself thinking like, hey, I'm not ready or I'm never going to be ready. I obviously have those memories. And maybe for me, it comes down to having someone that you trust that has maybe been in the gym scene a long time and can steer you in the right direction. Because
Yeah.
like you said, if you don't want to waste your time, the better idea would be to improve. Like, let's improve with a coach or let's improve on my own
Yeah.
and then consider a show.
Yeah.
Um, so how do you quickly sum up when's the best time to compete for the first time?
Well, I was gonna go in the way like if you were to ask me like specifics with time frame and all that kind of stuff. Let's say for guys, right?
Hmm.
I would think that you should be have training for at least 2 years. Uh, one maybe being not as serious and one being more like a bodybuilding lifestyle.
Hmm.
Uh, be able to have put on at least like 15 pounds of muscle. Like that should be pretty easy to do anyways in the
Hmm.
first, like if you're new to the gym. Uh, I would say definitely I've watched a bodybuilding show live. And I feel like that's something anyone considering competing should do. Like go see a show. Go see,
Yeah, I did the same
yeah,
thing.
go
Yeah.
watch a show and go see if you were the person on that last call out on the side that some people are making fun of, would you like to be that person? If you
But
like,
those shows are also like, if you've never competed before or never been around the
yeah,
scene, pretty intimidating.
yeah, but you need to be intimidated by that because you're going to be backstage at the
Yeah,
same
but
show.
you might not know at that time what you potentially could look like if you dieted down too, though, right? Because there's a lot of those guys.
Yeah, still, I feel like you can kind of see if you like the vibe, if you can see yourself on the stage. Whereas if you go in completely blind, never having seen a show, you
Hmm.
won't even know what to expect. And then you get people freaking out backstage.
Yeah.
Um, and I would say from the moment you're considering competing, give yourself at least a year. So whenever that is, give yourself a full year after the moment you start thinking about competing. I feel like that's the biggest thing. Like, see if you can be really consistent and focused on that for a year from that point.
Okay. Let's move on. We got
Yeah.
two more. And we could probably talk about that for an
Yeah,
entire
for sure.
podcast for sure. Okay. So that was Sebastian. Congratulations. He gets a $50 gift card. The next one is, let's do this one. You can only use 5 foods for your entire prep. So you
Oof.
have 5 foods that you can pick, and you can't eat anything else for whatever your 16, 20 week prep that you're going on. What are your 5 foods going to be?
Okay. For food, let's make a rule. Is a
Do you want to go
burger?
one by one? You pick one, I pick one, or do you want to
Yes,
go
yes,
your
but
five, my
I
five?
need to know, is a burger like two food or one?
You're not going to have a burger in your prep plan.
I need to
That's your
know.
5 foods.
I-
So that's irrelevant.
Okay. Well, okay, first one would be rice, obviously.
It's also in mine.
Yeah, okay. Second
Yeah.
one, which would be my meat, would be white fish.
Okay, mine would be chicken.
Chicken? Don't you
Yeah.
feel like you end up having like intolerance to chicken at the end if you eat it too much? No,
No,
I know I get that.
not at
Uh,
all.
third one would be eggs, so that I could do egg whites and full eggs.
I would not have eggs, but that's because I have like a mild sensitivity to
Okay.
them. I do like them in people's plans for sure. Okay, so you got eggs, white fish, and rice.
Yeah.
Okay, and I've got chicken and rice.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw a fat in, and I'm gonna go. This is a close one between coconut oil and olive oil.
Okay.
Okay,
Which
but
one is winning?
I'm gonna lean olive oil.
Okay. Olive oil, your
Yeah,
third?
yeah. I think I don't know. I feel like performance wise, there's advantages to coconut oil in a
Yeah.
pre-workout setting, but I think health conscious wise, olive oil has a little bit better of a profile. But again, it could be either or. I don't think you could make a mistake there, but that would be the fat that I would include
Okay.
so far. Yeah,
See,
what do you got?
I would have avocados for my fats.
You'd have avocado. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And is that because you want more satiating food? Like you want fiber
Yeah,
in it?
yeah. I feel like I would have the benefits of fiber in it. I feel like if I needed more fats, because I
Hmm.
have white fish, right? So I feel like eating more avocados is easier than loading up on olive oil and then like just shitting it out instantly. Because I feel like if I'm having like 25 ml of olive oil in a sitting in a meal, that's going to be like way too much, and I won't like that.
I diet on really low fat.
Yeah, me too, but I'm having white fish, right? As my only protein source.
That's terrible. No, you have eggs in your plan.
I do. I do have the
Yeah.
eggs.
Yeah, you have eggs in there to mix it up a little bit. But I I'm not a very big fiber guy.
Okay.
So I don't yeah, avocado
I just don't think I would have that much fat that it would really matter, to be honest with you. I'm kind of like you in the sense that I probably finish my preps with like 30 grams of fat total.
yeah,
So it would
yeah.
probably like be like 100 gram of avocados and two eggs in my days as my fats. So
Hmm. Hmm. And I'm comparing myself to kind of what I have in my plan right
yeah.
now too, right? I have coconut oil, olive oil, and almond butter.
Oh, see, I can do almond butter.
You
Is that
can.
what, no. Is that what you would have as your fourth?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, almond butter.
As long as I have it in the plan consistently, I don't have any issues with
Okay.
it. But if for some reason I don't have it in someone's plan, I will never throw it in
Yeah.
because sensitivities can definitely arise
Oh, for
in those
sure.
scenarios. But if I consistently have it, I have no problem with it.
Okay. See, I can't digest almonds at all. Like if I have like just 15 gram, my
Hmm.
stomach is like done for 2 days.
Right.
Okay, so that's your fourth, and my fifth would be burgers. And I would I would restrain myself to four food and hope for at least one cheat meal during my prep where I could just have a burger on that in there.
Would you go oats
No.
or protein powder?
I
That got you
uh,
the good one, eh?
I mean, I would consider it, but I think I could handle just white fish with avocados for
God, that's horrible, dude. You're gonna
16
eat
weeks.
white fish for 16 weeks.
Yeah,
Hmm,
yeah,
tough.
I'm good with that.
I'd probably add red meat into my plan too,
Yeah,
and
that's smart.
just get away with having the rice and the as the primary carb source, and then the olive oil as the fat, and then have
Yeah,
maybe three different proteins.
yeah. See, I'm just thinking white fish blended probably isn't great, eh?
Yeah, you so Julian's in a different boat than I am. Like he's trying to eat more food, so for him, he's blending stuff, and I went through that too. But I'm totally in the eating everything and enjoying every meal that I have point.
Yeah.
So we're on different sides of the spectrum, but okay. So that was Morgan who asked that
Yeah.
question.
I'm
So
curious. Let us know if you had the choice between Blake's choices and mine, which one would you take?
yeah,
I'm
I
thinking
think
you're gonna
people are gonna
win.
go with me. The burger might hold you up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so last question that we're gonna go through is do you need to train really heavy? Let's just say, do you need to train heavy to build muscle?
Yeah.
I
Uh,
don't want to go really heavy, like a
you don't want to
powerlifting
finish the
heavy.
question? Because there was another part to the question. Because,
Well, the other
like,
part was the question was a statement basically saying that Nick Walker has sort of proven that wrong.
yeah,
But I think Nick still trains heavy, does he not? Like heavy with control. Like he's not lifting light.
yeah, he's reduced the weight he uses, but it's
Right.
still
Still more
as
than most
heavy
people
as
can
it's as heavy
ever.
as he can lift for the form he's using now,
Hmm.
right? So obviously the number on the dumbbells is smaller,
Right.
but the intention of squeezing the muscle and of flexing and like the mind muscle connection is way greater. So I don't even
Str
think you can say it's lighter.
Strong is relative too.
Yeah.
Strong
So
for me is different than strong for you.
yeah. I'll address this because I actually had a talk about that with someone else this week. I feel like you need to build a certain train base before being able to train like Nick and benefit from it. Because if Nick wasn't able to shoulder press dumbbells of 160s or whatever his PR is, he wouldn't be able to get much from or use much weight in a more controlled form. And I do feel like you do need some tension on your muscle caused by the weight you're using. So if you start and you can only bench, let's say, 2 plates for 8 using what is like normal form, and you try to train like Nick, you won't even be able to do a plate. That won't cause muscle growth. So I do feel like when you're starting and you're building a base, you should absolutely work on getting stronger and putting on more weight on the bar. And once you're at a certain level, then you can benefit much more from training like Nick. And you've probably experienced this. I feel like the more muscle you have, the easier it is to feel it while you're working it, and the
Yeah,
easier it
no,
is to
for
contract it,
sure.
right?
And I think for me too, I've experimented with basically every type of training,
Yep.
like really any type of different type of bodybuilding training. And I've found a way that works for me. But I think that there are people like if I went in and I had to like lift like, extremely heavy every time I trained, it would stress me out. And I also wouldn't enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
Like I like to lift heavy, like for me on occasion, but if that was like my primary way of training, like even up to this point, like I know like there's good examples, like obviously Ian trained really heavy,
Yep.
Hunters trains really heavy. Like there's certain guys that do it and they benefit by it, but then like there's also guys like Jay Cutler who did tons of volume and he was on the other side of the spectrum. And it's finding what works for you, but also finding what you enjoy and are going to stick to consistently. Because the worst thing you can do is to jump around.
Yeah.
Because I've fallen victim to that before, where I'm like, okay, progressive overload is the only way to train, and I'm
Yeah.
just going to keep getting stronger, and then I get hurt.
Yeah.
And then I've been like, okay, now I'm just going to lift, light and like squeeze and do a million reps, and like that wasn't the answer for me either. So like the way I train right now is I work up to a working weight. I do an all out set with it. And I don't even care whether it's 8 to 25 reps. Like I
Yeah.
really don't. That's not really, doesn't really matter to me. It's after that set, do I feel like I have anything left in the tank? And if I do, I'll do another set and it might be a back off and then I move on.
Yeah.
And that's really what I do with a lot of my clients too, is like kind of have that same mentality and it works for the majority of people. And I
For
think
sure.
the big thing about that is like when you ask a question, do you need to lift heavy to gain muscle? It's the answer is no. Like
No.
there's nothing needed. Like you can like, the Sam Sulek thing, you can eat cereal and get jacked. Like you could do anything and gain muscle, but there's obviously ways that are a little bit more optimal and ways that are going to be better and safer for you. But yeah, there's a million ways to skin a cat. You got to find what works for you. But at the end of the day, it is intensity. Training intensity trumps everything from volume to amount of weight lifted. It has to be enough to promote a stimulus in the muscle and for you to respond to that training. So if it's not hard and you go home and you just feel like, you didn't even train it, the next day it's not going to respond by getting bigger. The only time it's going to respond by getting bigger is if you're consistently in there training harder and more intense. And whether that's 6 reps or 50 reps, that part doesn't really matter to me. Although doing 50 reps would suck and I wouldn't want to do it. And
Yeah.
doing 6 reps is kind of risky. So I'm usually in that 8 to 15 range, I would say, the
Yeah.
majority of the time.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like for 95% of the people listening, and even for ourselves, but maybe a bit less, it really doesn't matter how you train in the sense that you're going to be progressing as long as you're trying to get better in whatever type of way you feel is the most fun for you. Obviously, avoiding injury is important, but aside from that, as long as you're consistent and you're just going to the max of your capacity every time, you're
Hmm.
going to progress within that. So if for you, seeing the numbers on the machine, the plates, whatever, go up is something that really motivates you,
Hmm.
go for it. If it doesn't, and you prefer really feeling your muscle, go for that. Uh, when talking about the Nick thing and that he's not training as heavy anymore, I mean, I saw a shoulder press video. He was still shoulder pressing like 140 in each hand, which is still freaking heavy,
Hmm.
especially
Hmm.
with the form he's using. But thing is, he changed the way he trains, right? What that tells me is it's a new stimulus for his body. So his body is going to be responsive to that because it's something new. So it automatically causes adaptation. If you've been training a certain style for 3 years, you can
Hmm.
find a new style that you enjoy that is somewhat different. Well, you're going to
Yeah.
cause a new response. So obviously, I'm not telling you guys to jump from one style to the other every month. But if you've been training the same way for 3 years, 4 years, and you feel like your progress is might be stalling or going way really slower, then it might be a good idea to, instead of thinking about changing your split, changing your number of days you're training, maybe just change the way you actually perform the reps and see how that goes.
That's a really good point. And it's one thing I did in the off season really well. I don't do it quite as much now is log my workouts.
Yeah.
Because then I have like data to look back at. And even if I'm not getting stronger, it's nice to see like different volume, different things that I've done over time. And then, you know, like you said, like if you get stuck in a certain rep range and you feel like you've kind of maxed it out, or maybe you've maxed that machine out, it's like making a swap. Like you're doing dumbbell flies every week. Like now use a machine fly, or now use a
Yeah.
cable fly, or now like just do something different. But again, not every time you train.
No.
I think it's better to develop the skill at the exercise, take it as far as you can take it, and then maybe make a swap once you've like fully exhausted it. But I think that pretty much nails that question down. That was, I have it as "shat it to the rescue."
Yeah.
I don't know the name of this person.
Yeah. So
I just have the
just
Instagram
message
handle.
us.
So yeah.
Yeah. Real quick, see, you talked about like changing exercise, and obviously, I don't think that's a problem at Pure, but and that's my personal preference. If you got an exercise where your machine is taken and you need to wait for it, and you need to
Hmm.
wait 5 minutes before doing it, you might as well just do something similar, in my opinion, because even if you're training in a progressive overload kind of way, well, if you're resting for 5 minutes, you've just changed everything, and you should definitely be able to do more than the previous week. So if you're going to be in the middle of your workout and you need to wait for a machine, I would highly encourage you to just do something similar go all out, and then the next week come back to that leg press, let's say, and your strength should still be going up.
Hmm.
So I
No,
don't
that's a
know how
good
you
point.
feel about that. Is that how you would tell your clients to go about it, or
Yeah, no, it depends too a bit. Like for me personally, when I'm training, like there might be like a specific movement I have my mind wrapped around when I
yeah,
got to the gym. Like if I'm
yeah,
like today I have to do T-bar rows,
okay,
if that's taken, I'm waiting.
oh
But
really,
again, I'm so privileged at Pure
yeah,
because it's always like, quiet when I train and there's so many machines that I never really run into that scenario.
yeah,
And like, yeah, if I do, again, I'll ask, I'll ask how many
yeah,
sets you have left. And if it's like five and they just started, then I'll definitely move
then you'll
on.
move on.
But if it's they're almost done, then yeah, I usually stick to what I
Yeah,
have in my program.
okay, that makes sense. So we're good.
Yeah, I think so. I can't believe how fast these things go, man.
Yeah,
It's crazy. But yeah, it's been a blast. I do really enjoy doing these,
yeah,
and like we're gonna be consistent weekly with them. So we're gonna have an opportunity. Like, there's always still so much more I want to talk about even
yeah, for
now, but
sure.
I don't want to just, take this thing on forever. So yeah, I think that's good. I thanks guys again for the questions that you put in, and hit us up. We'll get you guys sorted out. And yeah, we're gonna do this again next week. I'm gonna progressively, hopefully. I still look like my face is in the off season, so there's gonna be one
Yeah,
week everyone sees me and they go, "All right, he's feeling it now.
yeah, they're
He's
gonna know
feeling it
when
now."
if you're ready for Toronto, they're gonna know. So
Yeah, exactly. These are gonna start sinking in a little bit more.
yeah.
So I'm looking
So
forward to that.
again, guys, if you haven't subscribed, please do it. It really, really helps us. Share, like, comment, whatever, all the good stuff. Uh, we're still gonna keep going even if you don't, but we would really like you to
It would
do.
help.
Yeah,
It
it
would
would
help.
help. And if you have any comment, anything you would like for us to touch on, specific subjects, whatever, just let us know. Also follow us on Instagram at the Average Bros Podcast. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you guys. See you episode 3 next
Three.
week.